very special, the morning meeting. It's Tim's birthday. Sean's back from assignment, and we have a bunch of stuff to go through. So get to it in a moment. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, welcome. Thank you for joining. Many of you here for the first time. This program's a little different. It's not about shouting. It's about peace, love, and understanding, extending the presumption of grace, and learning, even from, especially from those with whom you disagree. If you're watching here on the two-way platform, and plenty of you are today, welcome also. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. As always, we love when new people raise their hands because we love to hear diverse voices from across the fruited plain. So thank you for joining. So a lot going on today. The centerpiece of the day is the Vice President's big economic speech. One of the two most important candidates giving a speech on one of the most important topics, a topic that many undecided voters want to hear from her on. We've learned that on this platform and in other ways. 3:15 Eastern time in Pittsburgh to the Pittsburgh Economic Club. Very few details about what she plans to say have been released in advance. We'll maybe talk about why that is. We talked about that some yesterday. And then tonight at 7 p.m., the Vice President, an interview with the Vice President by Stephanie Ruhle. And we're going to talk about the selection of Stephanie Ruhle to do this interview because I'm gobsmacked. Now, we talked yesterday about headlines and the importance of getting good headlines. The best thing is to get a headline even before the speech. Let's look at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette headline from this morning's paper, all over doorsteps of people in Pittsburgh who still subscribe to such things. 102, please. Pretty good if you're the Harris campaign right there. Harris turns her focus to economy. Couldn't have written it better themselves in Wilmington. All right, so that's what Kamala Harris is doing. Donald Trump is in North Carolina again. Mint Hill, place I've never been, 1 Eastern time. He's also going to focus, we're told, on the economy, although he'll also focus on the late, great Hannibal Lecter and sharks and everything else. Tim Walz, I believe, is doing debate prep today, no public events. Michigan is where you'll find J.D. Vance, who's got an event this evening, 6:30 Eastern time, Traverse City. Doug Emhoff is in Wilmington, North Carolina, and Charlottesville, Virginia for events. President Biden here in Gotham City, continuing to do UN stuff. I was not invited to the party tonight at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I'm sure Tim was. Tim, please pull that for all of us. Now, we have lots of videos I want to look at too, but I want to start with the Vice President. And as I said, very few details about her speech. The New York Times says there's going to be an 80-page booklet put out and that they're going to be very explicit in contrasting her plan with Donald Trump's plan, which according to Rachel Maddow, John Oliver, and Kamala Harris is Project 2025. That's not really the Trump plan, but that is I think the point, if they are going to put out an 80-page plan, that's the point of it. Now, they've selected Stephanie Ruhle to do the interview. Tim, let me ask you this. If you're staffing Amy Klobuchar and she's doing an interview, you try to choose someone friendly mostly. How do you interact with the news organization, maybe the journalists themselves, to try to figure out what they're going to ask? Right? You explain how that process works. You call them up, you say, hey, the interview's tomorrow. What's on your mind, right? Just talk about how those conversations work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first question to me, happy birthday, as we launch into Stephanie Ruhle as a topic here. Yeah, no, look, I think that's right. You are.
No, say I'm a journalist, just for fun. Say I'm a journalist and I've got an interview with Amy. I've got an interview with Amy Klobuchar tomorrow. Hey, Tim, what's up?
Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm good. What's up? I'm preparing for the interview. I'm kind of busy. What do you need?
Any questions or topics you're thinking about? Where is your head at? I mean, like, you're not going to have something
Tim, I don't disclose the questions in advance. What would you suggest I ask? All right. Forget the role play.
I mean, look,
Stephanie, up until now, I'm getting on my soapbox and then Sean can jump in and back me up. Up until now, they've chosen friendly journalists. They've probably had conversations more explicit than Tim just pretended was the limits to which someone would go. I don't think they've locked out getting easy questions. In choosing Stephanie Ruhle, this is who they've chosen. Please play the clip.
Please be Bill Maher. Please be Bill Maher. Bill Maher.
Please.
Am I right?
We have two choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do, who he is, and the kind of threat he is to democracy.
I don't know.
So it's unclear to me how there could be.
So to get at the bottom of the vice president's economic views, they've chosen someone. they've chosen someone. Notice I didn't say they've chosen a journalist. They've chosen someone who on Friday said pretty explicitly, we don't need to ask her questions because everybody needs to vote against Trump no matter what. We don't need to get to the bottom of what she believes. It takes their selection of who she's doing interviews with to a farcical level. Sean.
So first, can I answer that? First of all, Tim, this is your birthday gift. She's doing an interview with Stephanie Ruhle.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Second, I will just answer the question just so people can have a feel for this. I think if you were doing the interview, I'd call you up and be like, hey, Mark, I know you're doing this interview. We've got a lot of stuff that she's going to roll out. I'd love to give it to you in advance so you can kind of see where she's going. This is really the angle that she's willing to contrast. Yeah. You give her the stuff and say, her tax cuts are going to yield this. This is what she's doing so that you narrow your focus. Secondly, with all due respect, this isn't a journalist and this isn't an interview. This is a staff meeting. Stephanie Ruhle has made it very clear where she stood. That Bill Maher clip couldn't be more. I mean, she calls Donald Trump a threat to democracy and to whatever. That's fine. I mean, she has a right to her opinion. She's an American, but she's not a journalist. This is a staff meeting that they're having today that's broadcast.
Yeah. I mean, look, all I'll say here is, yes, it's an interview on MSNBC with Vice President Harris. The last time Donald Trump left the Fox News ecosystem or right-wing news ecosystem,
100%, 100%, Tim. Although he does take questions in press conferences from people outside Fox. But Tim, this isn't just someone from MSNBC. It's someone from MSNBC who 5 days ago said we shouldn't be asking her hard questions. We should all just be voting for Trump, against Trump. Even Rachel Maddow hasn't said that.
But is there a qualitative difference than sitting down with Stephanie Ruhle than doing Gutfeld or calling into Fox?
No.
I'm just curious.
No, you're right.
You're right.
I will say this.
Right.
Hold on, Tim, you're right. The difference is, and Trump does Hannity, he does Gutfeld, he does a lot but he does everything. It's all of the above. He's had how many press conferences where he's taking questions from the Washington Post? He sat down. I mean, think about how many left-wing politicians, and it drives me, journalists, he has sat down with for extended interviews over the last, several months. It kills me, but he's doing it.
And Tim, to be clear, take the New York Times. They have some of their best reporters doing a series on what would Donald Trump's next term be like if he won. They have no such series on Joe Biden before he got out. They've not written a single story about Kamala Harris. Maybe some are in the works. Now, put up, please, 108. There's a new Muhlenberg poll out today that shows Trump and Harris tied in Pennsylvania. No accident she's doing this speech in Pittsburgh today. 47-47. Look at the next question. For those who are not sure, which according to this poll is just 2%, but look how the 2% breakdown, again, in this one poll, Trump overwhelmingly favored by that group. I bet you some number of that group is interested in Vice President Harris's views in the economy. They'll see news coverage of her speech. They may see clips from the Stephanie Ruhle interview. But if the point is to prove that she can handle tough questions and to be kind of probed about her views and show she's got the ability to defend it without a teleprompter, I don't think Stephanie Ruhle, if that's their goal, was the best choice. So anything you guys want to say about the economic plan based on what we know? I want to move on to other stuff.
Yeah. No, I just think, look, we keep talking about the economy as an issue. I think it's trending in her direction. I think we're getting good news out of the economy. We've gone for we forget where we were, right?
Yeah.
Where when she was not at the top of the ticket, there was a 22-point deficit for Democrats. And now that is down to single digits, slightly shrinking. So
Brian Fallon has predicted it's possible that by election day, she'll be ahead of Trump on who do you trust more in the economy, with the exception of the consumer confidence number, which was not good yesterday. You're right. Most of the data is positive. Okay, let's look at some videos. We showed a Trump video yesterday, and all of us, Sean, thought the production quality was pretty crappy. I want to show you a new video the Trump campaign has. It's kind of like a rah-rah video. This is 103, trying to convince people to join Trump Force 47, which is like the grassroots effort. And just look at the production quality, and we'll talk about it.
You could go out and vote right now. So get everyone you know and vote. We want a landslide that's too big to rig, okay? Too big to rig.
The most important person is you. It's you and your neighbors. It's you right now showing up.
We're going to win this election because of all of your hard work.
President Trump knows this, is he needs to be able to stand on our shoulders the same way that we want to be able to stand on his in January.
Thank you for playing a part in this. Thank you for being on our team. We are counting on you.
Please help elect someone who's going to put this country back on the right path and get away from this woke craziness and weakness abroad.
The music, the graphics are like, I could make that on a website. Sean, like, I know they don't have as much money as the Harris campaign, but how could a former president's campaign be putting out stuff that someone could cut better? Any of us could cut better on our laptop.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to deny that it's not the greatest edited video in the world, but I don't think the purpose of that's not meant to go on air. That's meant to send around to volunteers and say, "Hey, sign up." I mean,
I don't know. I don't know.
I won't.
To me, it doesn't meet the minimal level of like acceptability. Like if I were in a house race, I would say that that's not good enough.
Oh, look, you have very high standards, but I think that there's a time to be nitpicky. If that was going on air, they're putting money behind it, I'd be on your team. But to send that out to volunteers and to say, sign up and here's how, and look a little folksy.
Well, it's on the web too. It's on the web too. It's on the web also.
Great. Well,
I will say there is a digital strategy, and it's similar to mailers you get sometime where it's like the chunkier the mailers look, actually people open them and read them. And sometimes that's true with digital too. And to Sean's point, I think that's probably targeting like fans, trying to get them to just become volunteers.
It's beneath the dignity of the Oval Office. All right. Again, if you want to get a question in, please raise your hand. All right, let's look at two new spots. I think these are on air. They claim they are. First is 104. This is a new ad from the Harris campaign, part of other messaging they're doing about basically what you call Cheney-Haley Republicans.
Bob and I both voted for Donald Trump.
I voted for him twice. I won't vote for him again. January 6th was a wake-up call for me.
Donald Trump divides people. We've already seen what he has to bring.
He didn't do anything to help us. Kamala Harris, she cares about the American people. I think she's got the wherewithal to make a difference. I've never voted for a Democrat.
Yes, we're both lifelong Republicans.
The choice is very simple.
I'm voting for Kamala.
I am voting for Kamala Harris.
Tim, after you can set aside your emotions, take a deep breath. Tell us what you think.
What a nice Pennsylvania couple. No, look, it's a good ad in the sense that they are, particularly in Pennsylvania, trying to create a permission structure for Republicans to vote for Kamala Harris. I think it's also smart that they said the line in there specifically stresses she cares about people like me, playing into that personality quality that we know that she has an edge on, or is at least has some momentum on the economy in that aspect. And so it's about, and I also think it's wise that these are people who have voted for Trump twice. So I think it's a good permission structure ad.
100% you think they're real people, not actors, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sean.
They better. I mean, you'd be killing if you chose two people as actors and that, you'd get crushed.
All right. Okay. I'm sure they're real people. I'm sure they're real people.
I mean, I have no problem. I think the ad's good. It's well put together. It's the only message she has, frankly, which is, hey, things were better under Trump, but here's why you should vote for me.
Well, but let me ask you about that choice, right? Because there's a little bit of dissonance here. We're told the vice president in her speech today is going to say things are my economic plan's better, right? Don't think the Trump economy is so good. The guy has one line about how he didn't do anything for us, but most of the ad is about democracy, about January 6th, right? Like, Tim, why not that same ad, but saying we'll do better, the economy will be better under Kamala Harris? Why not that?
Yeah, you could cut that version of that ad. Yeah, I think. I do think there's probably a question of the folks who are targets of that ad. January 6th is you could have voted for Trump twice, and then that happened. Situations that framing makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Second spot I want to show you. This is from a Trump super PAC. There are many. It's called the group Right for America. This is a new ad. Let's take a look.
My values have not changed. I will not ban fracking.
Roll the tape.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Access to health care should be a right.
So for people out there who like their insurance, well, they don't get to keep it.
Let's eliminate all of that.
She was big on defund the police.
Defund the police. We need to reimagine how we are creating safety.
I would enforce our laws with people who cross our border. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal.
Guilty for America is responsible for the content.
There was big huzzas for Dave McCormick's early ad with her previous positions. I find that spot incredibly confusing. And part of it is because she switched her positions to more moderate views. But I find it can be hard to follow. Like, what's her view? What are they saying?
Yeah, but that's the point.
Now,
I think that's my takeaway on this. Is here she is, a typical politician. She'll say whatever she has to say. She flip-flops. I mean, that to me, I mean, I wasn't confused. My takeaway was very clear. She'll say whatever she has to say. She'll flip positions on multiple issues. She's not real. She's not authentic. And so,
well, but are they running against her because she's liberal, or are they running against her because she's not authentic?
I think in that particular ad, it was the authentic issue, and you can't believe her. But it also reminds you that there is a core progressive liberal aspect to her that you have to warn her about. So I mean, it gets it in there.
Tim, what do you think of that spot? I find it confusing.
I mean, I get what they're trying to do. It's like like you said, it's like a version of that Dave McCormick ad. I think some of the cutting there is confusing. Like, they cut together her saying defund the police, which she's never actually said, and then the reimagining line. But look, they put her in a courtroom, which is very funny to me. Like, one of these candidates has spent a lot of time in the courtroom recently, and it's not Kamala Harris.
We had a conversation, and one of the folks asked us to weigh in on this ad. The rabbi asked us the other day, and he was asking us about being in the room. And I thought of that ad where there's a bunch of people in the room and everyone's got the good idea fairy going, you know what else we need to juxtapose? And that ad had a little bit of, you know what else we're missing? And I had PTSD on that one. I was thinking to myself, that's the typical ad where everyone's sitting around going, okay, add this, add that, take this out, add one more clip on that. But I still think it's effective.
Yeah. All right. I say again, Trump is vague. Trump is a flip-flopper. Trump doesn't have specific policies. All true. Axios is doing some very interesting work where they come up with some old Harris policy. They call the Harris campaign and say, does she still have this view? And when they don't answer, they say she's not standing by her previous position. Today, they did the death penalty. She previously was abolishing the death penalty. Now she won't say whether she is or not. And there have been 2 or 3 others that they've done. Sean, what do you think of that? Is that something that the Republicans can make something out of?
To some degree, I think they've done a good job because they brought up reparations previously. I mean, there's a bunch of things, but I wish they would take it a step further. It's sort of like, okay, so now what, right? Part of this is she won't engage. They're not explaining the and so what. She's not engaging. It's just like, oh, she didn't call back. Well, there's no context that this is one of several issues that she's doing it this way. And I think they're leaving the readers shy of explaining the full context of why it matters.
Tim, it seems to me pretty clear that they don't want to go into the general election in Pennsylvania saying one candidate wants to expand the death penalty and one wants to eliminate it. So if you're inside the comms operation at the Harris campaign, are they worried that this will be pursued more than just Axios calling up, or this is not a big deal?
I think it is a little bit incumbent on the Trump campaign if they want to pick these individual issues as Axios goes through this and to blow them up and make it a big deal. And I don't think it's necessarily a fault of the Trump campaign that they're not doing it. I think maybe they don't think on these particular issues that it's the most important, and they feel like they have their set of issues, like in that ad, that they really just want to stay disciplined on and try to hammer. So I've followed those Axios stories. I'm not sure, the potpourri of policy is going to matter, the ones that they're zeroing in on, unless someone makes a big deal about it.
Yeah, I mean, death penalty is still a pretty big issue. All right, Tom, welcome in. Unmute, please. I'm praying your shirt suggests you're in Wisconsin. Just kidding. Tell everybody who doesn't know, Tom, where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
Well, actually, I'm in Minnesota, but I vote in Florida. And I've voted for Trump twice, and I'm quite certain I will again. I know one thing for sure, and that is I will never vote for Kamala Harris. And I'm here listening to all these ads and just thinking, why can't we get rid of these ads? They're stupid. They appeal to a total lack of trying to understand the issues. I think that this entire situation is just ridiculous.
So, Tom, do you think the government should make them illegal, or you wish the campaigns would just choose not to run them? How would you want to get rid of them?
Make them illegal and replace them with at least 6 or 8 debates where people can be forced to dig into their ability and their background and give intelligent answers to questions.
All right, Sean's laughing. Tim's thinking about all his friends.
Look, I would
all his
love
friends who
more
make money off events.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look, just Tom, just for context, there's a lot of people that make a lot of money off this. Number two, there's a degree of effectiveness where you can watch when you're doing focus groups and tracking polling that you can watch the needle move one way or the other against your opponent or for you, depending on the ad. So there is a degree of effectiveness that comes out of this. I mean, the reality is that if campaigns saw a strategy that was more effective, they would be on board with it. I would love to see like 8 Lincoln Douglas debates where there was no moderator. They got up there and there were 5 subjects and they went. I mean, that's on a personal level, on like an American model, like where I think that would be great. I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're making great points. I just don't think we're in a world right now where either side is willing to agree to a lot of that.
I'd say one unintended consequence of that too is you may be saying goodbye to local television. There's like a downstream consequence of how much those TV stations rely on political cycles to get advertising dollars to stay afloat, which is not great, but it is just the economics of the situation too.
Tom, how'd you find the morning meeting?
I really don't know. I've been here every morning for about the last month and a half. Somewhere along my surfing of the web, I found it.
Okay. Do you know to tell all your friends to join too? Do you know that that's something important for you to do? All right, Tom, thank you. Thank you, sir. Come back often. Appreciate it. All right. Narsu, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, where you bought your hat, and who you're supporting in the presidential race.
I forgot where I bought the hat, but I am about 60 miles north of Philly, an independent voter, registered independent.
Who'd you vote for in 16 and 20, sir?
Trump.
Trump both times.
Trump.
And this
Trump again.
And you're going to vote for Trump a third time.
Yep.
Okay. What's on your mind, sir?
I did vote for Democrats 3 times, Kerry, and twice for Obama. So okay. I'm a registered
yes, sir.
Independent.
Are you tempted to vote for Kamala Harris?
Not at all.
Not at all. Why not?
Well, they're so far out in the left field. It doesn't even come close to earning my vote. Unless they, nominate somebody like, who's that guy? Starbucks CEO, Schultz. Yeah. Through the primary process, they're not getting my vote. We need either Schultz or Diamond, somebody like that, to come through the primaries.
Understood. What's on your mind, sir? Question or comment that Sean?
Well, I want to comment on something that came up on your show last night. There was a lady from North Carolina talking about she's better now economically than she was 4 years back. And, I think we failed to see that there are 2 classes of population. One that are sitting on assets, the others who are working to make a living.
Right.
There is a good chunk of population that don't own assets. They don't own homes. They don't have 401k plans. And the economic question is to them, are they better off now than they were 4 years back? Not if your 401k is doing better or not. And much of that population, and somebody else mentioned a few weeks back, that's the laptop class versus non-laptop class.
Right.
It's the non-laptop class that's deficient on assets.
Yeah. Are you doing better off under Biden-Harris than you were under Trump?
I am, because I'm part of that asset class.
Yeah.
I'm doing much better. Actually.
Yeah, but you're still supporting Trump because you're concerned.
Because I see the validity behind his argument. Trump is a caricature. There are probably a million better Trumps than Trump that support Trumpism, right? Not one of them could bring out the voters like Trump can. So Trump is kind of an essential, what do you want to say? We need him to bring the votes out for Trumpism.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Do you have I appreciated everything you said. Interesting perspective. Do you have a question you want to ask, or you just want to make that comment?
No, not really. I just want to make that comment. I think it's a tight race, but looking at the, polling discrepancy in the past, it's hard for me to believe the polls. But also, there's been a lot of population movements during COVID and after COVID. So I don't know what to say. If the pollsters are wrong, or if it's the same as before, then Trump looks better. But if the polling has caught up to the population movements, then it's a tight race.
Great. Narsu, thank you. Come back often. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Bring in Mr. Hammonds, Bill Hammonds. Bill, tell folks where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
Okay, well, at the moment, I'm overseas, but I am registered to vote in Austin, and not voting for anybody on the ballot. So, write in, but won't be counted. So, one comment about the ad issue. Amateur hour. There wasn't too much talk about it, but the Trump campaign, they put out an ad about the U.S. state of Georgia. And they included a picture from the country of Georgia. They were off by about 10 time zones. So that seems to tie into this thing that we see. Okay, so
Bill,
question.
Quick question because we got to get other folks in, please.
Okay, so quick question. Pick your sleeper issue. One, Arlington. I was just doing yet another Google. That seems like the Army wants that to go away. Seems like a lot of people want that to go away. Investigation.
Bill, I got a present. Do you have a quick question?
Okay, yeah. So Arlington or Aro, that's the other. Are there a couple of sleeper issues that are going to blow things up? Maybe change things in a few weeks.
Arlington or what?
New polling that's coming out.
Yeah. All right.
And do we think AI polling is going to change things? Maybe it's probably too soon for this election. Do we think AI polling is going to change things?
All right. That's more than one question. Bill, thank you. Tim, comment on whatever you wish.
And I guess my sleeper issue now between those two still remains healthcare. I think that's going to be front and center. But there's going to be a lot of paid behind that. Would be my
Tim is correct. Play the correct noise if we have it. Sean, you got a sleeper issue today? What's on your sleeper issue?
The interesting thing is, I think it's healthcare, but not the healthcare that you're thinking of. I think there's a growing sentiment on the right. And I don't think it's just the right. I think it's among moms of both a bipartisan issue of health and wellness when it comes to big pharma, big food, that I'm seeing really manifest itself, especially Bobby Kennedy giving it a lot of things. The discussion of it is rising to a level. I don't know, but I think that there's a potential that bubbles up a little bit more than it has.
All right. Thank you. All right. I warn our affiliates we're going to run a little bit over because we still got to talk about a clip from Sean's show, but I want to bring Justin in. Justin, just for balance sake, I'm hoping that you're a Harris supporter, but tell us who you're.
Well, in 2016, I was 18 years old, so I didn't vote. In 2020, I was 22, so I still didn't vote. But this year, I'm gonna vote more likely for Donald Trump.
Where do you live, Justin?
I'm actually in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
Right now, but I guess had a question because I know the Harvard poll came out yesterday, and it said people from like 18 to 29 were like 60-38 on voting for Kamala Harris. However, you see other like conflicting polls like Quinnipiac saying like it's around 48 to like 45%.
Yeah.
And from the people I talk to that are in my age demographic, I'm also seeing a lot of like men mostly voting for Donald Trump. Which is kind of weird, I thought. I just wanted, I guess, ask Tim, what do you think the Democratic Party now could do to kind of bring men back into their base and younger men specifically? And what do you think Kamala Harris could do? Because like the whole Doug Emhoff thing, like, and they're trying to really like kind of fabricate this sort of movement to get men back on board. It's just not really working. It doesn't come off as authentic to a lot of people. So I just had that question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Justin.
Yeah.
I think just one comment on because I find this fascinating, in particular with how youth voters are polled. There's this research from Navigator Research that is out where they've done like a deep dive, 4,000 interviews with young voters. And the way that we poll, it always matters whether or not you're calling someone, whether or not they're screened online, whether or not it's panel, non-panel. That explodes when you're talking about young voters. So we've seen these like huge swings of, all right, Harris is getting exactly what Biden got. Just kidding. Trump is actually +1 with young people. And the reason we've seen that huge chasm is just how you poll young people matters maybe the most of any group. So, we've just seen wild swings there. And then very quickly on your second question, look, I think like there is a big, it's true for millennials. I think it's true for Gen Z and younger generations, like how to allow people to get their foot in the door in the economy seems to be like a big question that I don't even think is necessarily split by gender. It's just like, how are you going to be able to afford a house? What does the job market look like? What are your future prospects there? So, opportunity economy, as Harris would say, but I think there's a big economic question that looms over every generation.
And I just real quick, I think Tim's absolutely right on the polling issue. Justin, you're typical of the issue. You find people that are suddenly engaged, right? You didn't vote 18 to 22. Now you're voting, right? You're in that group that Harvard's looking at. And the question is, okay, are you actually going to pull the trigger this third time? Obviously you are, but when they're trying to put that screen together that Tim was referencing, this is what makes it very difficult. It's the third time the charm, isn't it? So I think you're putting your finger on an unbelievably complex problem that exists for pollsters. Number one. Number two, I think you're onto something. There's something in the water with young men in particular. And I think the Trump campaign has done a phenomenal job of reaching out to them through alternative media. Last thing, real quick, just how's the Senate race down there? Are you voting for Ted Cruz?
I'm not a Republican. Like I don't identify as that. I'm probably going to vote for Colin Allred. Like I'm not a conservative at all. I just enjoy Donald Trump truly. Like I don't even think I would be voting for a Republican candidate if it wasn't for Donald Trump. He's the only reason why I'm voting. Yeah, for him.
You.
Yeah,
Justin, thank you, man. Come back often. We appreciate your perspective. All right, so I think we had 3 Trump supporters and 1 undecided, and there's only one anecdote in America to balance out the end of the program, which would be a closing homily from Democrat Harris supporter Chris Simmons from the great state of Georgia. Chris, how are you feeling about all those Trump backers, and how are you feeling about the race today?
I'm not feeling great about the race. I do think the Harris campaign is. I would make a boxing analogy to Muhammad Ali. When you lay against the ropes and you think your opponent's just gonna punch themselves out, and you don't really have to fight or have a strategy. I think the campaign's making a huge mistake by not having her directly address the economy, come up with a counter narrative. I mean, they're just trying not to really talk about it. They've missed a lot of chances to directly rebut assumptions about how Trump affected the economy, et cetera. So I don't think the rope-a-dope strategy is going to turn out to be a smart one at the end of the day.
Is today's speech an opportunity to get off the ropes and start punching hard?
It's a major opportunity, but I'm definitely going to watch it, and I'm afraid that the strategy will continue to be what we've seen. And I just can't imagine that she's not smart enough to say the few sound bites she would need to say to deal with it.
What do you think of the selection of Stephanie Ruhle to be the one to elucidate her policy positions?
Not wise. It's not credible.
Yeah, not credible. That's good, Chris. I'm glad to hear you say that. I tell you, I normally don't like sports metaphors in politics because they're so overused. Rope-a-dope is good. What I've been using is Phil Ford, Dean Smith, 4 corners. Because in the 4 corners, you run out the clock, but you don't just turn the ball back, right? You try to score at the end, or you lull them into a false sense of security, and then you go in for the layup. Maybe today, Phil Ford is going in not only for the bucket, but and one. Maybe today is the day when she scores offensively on the economy. Well, I'll have to see. Chris, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Drive safely. We'll talk to you soon. I'm curious to see what you think of the speech. All right. We got to do a couple more things, even though we're over. First, Sean, last night on his program, even though he was on assignment, had James Blair, the political director of the Trump campaign, talking about this issue of they're using outside groups primarily to deal with door-knocking voter contact. And that's somewhat out of necessity. It's also taking advantage of the new law, interpretation of the law that allows coordination between the outside groups and the campaign, including groups funded by the guy who owns X, Elon Musk. So here's Sean's exchange last night with a somewhat confident James Blair. Please play that clip.
I feel confident, and I feel more confident in some groups than others, shall we say. But, there's ways we can actually check on what they're doing. I do think that people misunderstand how much we can know about what's going on. So we've got a pretty good handle on who's doing what, down to what voters they're talking to and what the voters are telling them. And I'll probably leave it there just for legal reasons.
But you feel good overall.
Yes, I do. I'll put it to you this way. We will make more voter contacts in the 2024 election than we did in the 2020 election by the time election day rolls around. And we will have successfully canvassed more voters than we did 4 years ago. So that seems to be what we're measured against. But the fact is we'll outperform that when it's all said and done.
So Tim Hogan, whose human intelligence is as high as anyone I know except for Greg Kinnear and Donald Trump. Tim, does that guy seem like he's telling the truth?
Sure. But no, I actually do think he is telling the truth. Is like, there are some groups I think will be good and we're going to watch the other ones and see. But like, there is something unsaid there that is very true, which is you want to keep those canvassing and those organizing operations as close to the core of the campaign as you can. And the further out you get, the more shells you're putting around your organizing operation. There's less and less accountability. There's less tightness in messaging. There may be some problems with targeting. So it's similar to buying commercials. Super PAC is at a disadvantage. Same with canvassing, but it's an organizational issue. It's not a cost issue. It's an organizational issue. So,
yeah. So Sean, you wanted to show that clip, I think, because this could be the whole election. If it's close, whether James Blair is right and whether their bet on the outside groups pays off or not could determine who wins, right?
Yeah, I've said this before. We're within a margin of error in all 7 battleground states. Get out the vote efforts. Early vote, absentee vote, chase is critical. That's the game. You turn your people out, you win. You don't. But I think it was also brutally honest. The idea of all these groups are going around sucking up money from donors saying we're doing this thing. And James Blair is saying point blank, hey, some groups are doing their job, some groups aren't. And we know who you are because there's a mechanism of accountability. Was brutally honest. And I give him a ton of credit for that. And I also think that in the back of their mind, that if I saw that clip and I'm at one of these outside groups, I have the fear of God in me now going, oh, crap, they know that we're not actually delivering and we've been sucking up resources. So 42 days out, 41 today, I guess, he is sounding the bell. And I think that's what I thought was so key about this is we know who you are and we know who's doing it and who's not doing it.
Yeah. And as I said on my episode last night, the Harris campaign chair is one of the best field operators in the history of the Democratic Party. And so to have your campaign run by someone who does field, who does turnout, Jen O'Malley Dillon, is a huge advantage. Yeah.
I was actually really shocked. We went over early voting and he had some really good information and numbers on Virginia early voting. He didn't say we're going to win Virginia, but he said, look at our over 200%. So it was actually really interesting how well they're tracking the metrics at this point.
Yep. We need to book somebody to talk about the early vote and the voter age and all that stuff. We should be the place that people can ask that question. So my 2 favorite moments of this episode, just so you know, one was Sean wishing Tim happy birthday. And the other was the great, great laugh we heard out of Georgia when I asked about the Stephanie Ruhle interview. I enjoyed that moment.
Those are all Tim's birthday presents.
Yeah. Tim, are you having a watch party for the Stephanie Ruhle interview? Maybe being on a Zoom with Chris Simmons and watching it together. How are you going to do that?
Those are my birthday plans. We'll put it on 2-way. Everyone can show up and celebrate my birthday and the interview. Yeah.
All right. 6 p.m. tonight. This is the big reveal of tonight's episode. 6 p.m. tonight. We're going to pregame the Stephanie Ruhle interview, which will already have taken place. It's a taped interview, but we're going to pregame the rollout of it. Maybe we'll have a clip by then. I'm hoping we will. So join me, please, tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Harris versus Trump campaign rules. Get that, campaign rules. And there'll be some guests and we'll take your questions and we'll talk all about the Harris speech, the Harris interview, hopefully have some clips the Trump event, and there are going to be some new polls today, I've been led to believe. So join me at 6 o'clock for all of that. And then tomorrow morning, same bad time, same bad channel, right here, the morning meeting, Tim and Sean. No one's birthday as far as I know. Nonetheless, a festive episode. Thanks for everybody who asked questions. Thanks always to Sean and Tim. And we'll see everybody at 6 p.m. and then at 9 a.m. Have a great day.